Welcome into yet another episode of the Inverted Microphone. We are finally back after a slight hiatus. Zach Tarasic is fake, so he's not here, but we've got a very special episode. We're talking some World Cup action. Yes, it's like 7 months away, but the World Cup draw was last Friday. It was started last Friday. I think it just finished this morning on Tuesday with how long and drawn out that show was. Joa'o, did you get a chance to watch the World Cup draw?
I watched it in bits and pieces, so I watched it sort of little by little, but even then I heard about sort of what happened at the beginning and I was like, "Come on now. What are we doing here? People already think that there's something quote unquote rigged with the World Cup and now you're letting the world leaders of the host get their own countries. Like, what are we doing, honestly?"
Yeah, it was something. And then the fact that I think it took 2.5 hours from the start of the programming on Fox to when the draw was actually taking place. It was something. I think we had like 5 concerts. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Rio Ferdinand, for some reason, is a comedy sketch artist. It was just truly bizarre. But this episode will be wholly dedicated to talking about the 2026 World Cup held across Canada, Mexico, and the United States. We'll start with Group A, go all the way through Group L, then talk about who we have winning, who we have being a potential dark horse team that could maybe cause an upset or two, and then it's just something we're looking forward to within this World Cup. We'll start with Group A, which has our host nation, Mexico, or one of our host nations. So you see Joa'o's grin. He's pretty happy that Mexico made the World Cup auto qualifier. South Africa, South Korea, and then the winner of UEFA Path D, which will be one of Denmark, Czech Republic, the Republic of Ireland, or North Macedonia. Joa'o, what are your thoughts on this group, and how do you see Mexico faring in it?
Well, look, I mean, first of all, starting off with Mexico, I see it very difficult. I've been talking to family members and just sort of people around me, people who watch this Mexican national team, and I can tell you already, in the back of my mind, there's this feeling that Mexico could get grouped. If there's a country that goes through like Denmark, I think that Denmark is very balanced. Mexico has struggled against Denmark the last times they've played them. They've played them twice or three times in the last 10 years, and it's this lingering thought that Mexico could go out if they don't get their stuff together. There's only 7 months left, and those 7 months fly by. I mean, you still have Liga MX, you still have European competition for those players that it applies to, but it's just, first of all, if those young players blossom like they're supposed to in that certain time frame, they could carry Mexico out of the group stage in a possible first or second place. But if that doesn't happen, I mean, they can start packing their bags because it's very grim for the Mexican national team right now.
I have to agree with really what you said there, just because of the fact that Denmark could win that playoff. I realistically seeing them winning it. That is who I predict going through. And then all of a sudden, you've got to play South Korea and Denmark to try and get through. Your final game would be at the Azteca against Denmark or whoever wins UEFA Path D, which is not something that too many teams can go in there and win. But I just struggle to see Mexico coming out of this group with too much success. I think they'll be able to beat South Africa with ease. South Korea, they're not the best Asian team by any stretch of the imagination, but they're good. They have high-quality players. I mean, Heung-min Son plays for South Korea. That's enough said, really. And then Denmark, you look at the quality there. They've obviously got Christian Eriksen. They've got Rasmus Højlund, who, imagine saying that as one of their top quality players a couple of years ago. But they've got guys in the Premier League. They've got guys playing in the top leagues of France and Germany, Italy. They've got an experienced goalkeeper. They really have the backbone that you want from a team in international play, which is why, in my opinion, I have them winning the group if they win the playoff. If one of Czech Republic, Ireland, North Macedonia wins the playoff, Mexico probably has an easier time going through from this group.
And that's totally agreeable. And I mean, you hit all the specific points there. You hit sort of everything that needed to be said. Now, one thing is certain: expect the unexpected, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Mexico's gonna live off of 2018 and that game against Germany, and I mean they got South Korea in that group. They beat South Korea in that group. Those national teams, I think South Korea is a better team than they were than in 2018. I think that Mexico is a I don't know they sort of go into the same position into the same position. Mexico in the last I want to say since 2014, since the 2014 World Cup, they've gone into every World Cup sort of in a bad shape. So I mean, it's also sort of a little bit of a waiting period, but expect the unexpected. I think is going to be the sort of slogan of this World Cup.
I completely agree with that. And the fact that, again, Mexico hosts 2 games in the Estadio Azteca. That is, I don't want to say that's 6 points there, but that is at least a goal in your favor just because the atmosphere in that stadium, in the Azteca, is going to be absolutely incredible. It is going to be probably the best atmosphere in the World Cup. Not to deal with the fact that you're playing in that Mexico City altitude. You're playing Denmark, South Korea, who, most of those guys are playing in Europe now at lower altitudes and not really used to that higher altitude. It is going to be fascinating to see what that home atmosphere can do. And I also think the fact that third place teams can advance out of the group is going to benefit Mexico if Denmark does qualify, just because it gives them a bit more leniency to, drop points against Denmark. If you beat South Africa on match day 1, they weren't even beat, but you draw with South Korea, all of a sudden you're on 4 points and you're probably through at that point.
That's for sure. And I mean, here's the thing. I mean, atmosphere is a big thing. And I mean, when they were drawing the groups, they've been joking this whole time about the World Cup being hosted in Mexico. The Mexican people are like, oh, we can't wait to sort of mingle and sort of, experience these people from different places. But one thing will be certain. I think if stuff goes wrong in the group stage for Mexico, they go through in the third place, the fans are going to turn on them. The fans are going to turn on them. They're a very passionate group, but it's a weird. The Mexican, I guess, fan base right now is sort of in a weird position, just because I see it firsthand. It's you have this younger generation coming in and sort of watching, and they're much more volatile than those older generations. Older generations were more, let's stick with this team through and through, let's see where it goes. And even then, if they were doing bad to some extent, they were just like, oh, well, I'm going to stop watching this team. I'm going to stop investing my time, my money, whatever. And that's what the younger generation is sort of lack to do. So I think that's another sort of interesting bit to look at least, in what's going to happen with Mexico. Just because people say the support is there, but in Mexico, the crowds are much more harsher than what they are here in the United States.
I also think finishing third isn't necessarily a success by any means, because that means you have to play a group winner. I just looked. It depends on who finishes third and who advances out of the third place. But it would mean that Mexico would either face likely Germany or not Netherlands, Belgium in the round of 32, which is not favorable, not optimal. You'll want to finish in the top 2. Just keep it traditional, keep it with that traditional just round of group tournament of 32 rather. Moving to Group B, this one is actually not interesting at all, really. That's a little harsh, but it's not. It has the host Canada, UEFA Path A winner, which is one of Italy, Wales, Bosnia and Herzegovina, or Northern Ireland. Italy has an absolute cakewalk there. Bless them. Qatar and Switzerland. It's a group that feels like it is another one that is rigged for the hosts.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, here's the thing: Canada's one of those teams that they've been on the rise. They've been sort of, their performances have been showing a little more. They've been a little more consistent. They've had a better team. They've started to improve. They've started to have these talents that go out to Europe. And I mean, Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David. I mean, you're talking about Canada in a World Cup. They're they're in a great position. I think that Qatar is a beatable opponent for that Canadian national team. I think they face that Canadian national team. If not, they'll have great film study on them, just because Qatar has participated in Gold Cups in recent years. And then that Swiss team, it's weird, right? Because they're not a European powerhouse per se, but they're not someone you're supposed to take lightly. I think that a game between Canada and Switzerland is definitely going to be very intriguing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think Canada's rise is coming at the perfect time for this World Cup. Alphonso Davies just returned from injury. I think it was yesterday. All those guys
262 days.
Yeah, it's a long time, but it's perfect timing for him to get back into the fold. They've obviously got other quality players. I mean, you talk about Jonathan David is in there, Tyrone Buchanan. They've got guys in there that are good enough. They play in high-quality European leagues that I think they could easily make a run for it. Qatar, I'm not impressed by. Switzerland, I agree with. They've got some guys there, Burrell and Bolo. Granit Xhaka is obviously the main focal point. They've got experience as well. They've done good things over the years in Euros, in the World Cup. It's not like they've just dominated. They've just kind of squeaked by, but they're good enough at getting the job done, advancing out of the group. As for Pathé, I just think Italy's going to get there, and when Italy does, it all of a sudden makes Canada's job a little bit harder. But in the same thing, you play Italy match 1, you kind of can just move on from that quickly. Now, if it's Wales, Bosnia and Herzegovina, or Northern Ireland, you start the group stage on a perfect note. So it's a funny juxtaposition between whoever wins it, but I think it sets Canada up well.
I think there's a lot of irony there as well if Italy doesn't make this World Cup, because they have the route, they have that pathway. They've been complaining about, oh, well, AFCON qualifiers are easy, or I remember I think it was Gennaro Gattuso making some sort of claims to AFCON qualifiers, or I think it might have been CONMEBOL qualifiers. But I mean, everything is there in your court, and I mean, it's fair game if they end up making this Group B, because I think it's totally winnable. I think that this Italian squad, it's not the best, but I mean, there's definitely talent there with Alessandro Bastoni, with Nicolo Barella, with just all these Serie A players who have been very fruitful for their clubs. It's just, can they come together, work as a team, and sort of lead it through, just so Italy can go ahead and make this World Cup.
I agree with everything said there, and I also really want to tie it back to what Italy did last time in the World Cup qualifiers. We talked about how their playoff run was fairly easy. It wasn't as easy as it is now, but they were in Path C with North Macedonia, Portugal, Turkey at home in Palermo. 92nd minute for North Macedonia. I don't think you can really count Italy in. You said expect the unexpected. I think it's certainly no different with this group, especially with Italy. But we'll just have to wait and see. This is a group that is dependent on who is there. Moving to Group C now. This is one where I'm going to read it out in the order that it's written out, but I'm really certain this is going to be the final standings. Brazil, Morocco, Haiti, Scotland. Brazil is catching form. Morocco, we know what they can do. We saw them go all the way to the semifinals in 2022. Haiti, Scotland, for them, it's both their first World Cups in a long time.
I'm shocked, honestly. I don't know. I don't know if I put Haiti over Scotland. I think that
is true. That is true. That Scotland's got Scott McTominay. That's definitely harsh.
Well, they've shown some fight in getting into the World Cup. They've shown a lot of passion this time around with the qualifiers. Brazil and Morocco, I think that's very interchangeable. I mean, even watching Morocco play from sort of those youth tournaments, I watched them play in the U17 and U20 World Cups that just happened recently, not too long ago. This national team on every level is very passionate. This team is they're not necessarily the best on paper, but they have great names. They have players like Hakimi. They have players like El Nasri. They have these talents that work together, and the way they work as a team, I can honestly see them being Brazil if on a good day. I can see them topping this group. It's all just dependent on how Brazil is coming in, because obviously, the first half of their qualifiers was absolutely horrendous. I was
Yes.
worried for this Brazilian squad. And seeing their names on paper, it's not supposed to be this way. You have players who are playing in the top clubs in Europe. Why are we not making it work? Now, Ancelotti has been doing his job. Ancelotti has been, improving the squad little by little, but there's no actual game plan for the squad. It's more let them go out, let them do what they're gonna do. They're the professionals. I'm just here trying to guide them however I can.
I agree, but I think the issue I have, or not the issue, the main factor that I see with this Brazilian squad is just the sheer quality. You got Vinicius Jr., Richarlison, Rodrigo, Esteval, Mateus Cunha, Joao Pedro. The midfield, you got Lucas Paqueta if he's eligible to play, Bruno Guimaraes, Casemiro. There are guys in this team. If Gabriel's healthy and fit, there's your center back. He's one of the best in the world. There is just so many guys in this squad that are able to make a difference. And I left out Rafinha from the list. There is just a deep team. And I think that's going to be the difference between them and Morocco. I mean, obviously, you spoke well about Morocco and the quality that they've shown over the years, but also they're playing with the results they're getting. But I think in this match, it's another match where the two main teams we talk about within the group play on match day one. They play at MetLife Stadium. I just see that Brazil will be able to eke that out and take the group.
Yeah, I mean, if not, I think if it's not sort of whoever wins this match, I think the group is sort of defined on who's gonna score more.
Yeah.
I think that we could see a high scoring draw. We could see a 2-2, maybe 3-3 draw. I mean, we are a couple months out, but I think after that, if it's going after who can score more goals on Haiti and Scotland, I think Brazil could take the group by goal differential, just because this Moroccan squad, they play to the level of their opponent. They've shown it, sort of match in, match out in every specific tournament. So I think that could be correct. Brazil could be going through, but once again, in my opinion, very interchangeable. And I think it's going to be one of the more interesting groups to see, especially if Haiti or Scotland can bring a surprise along the way.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I worry about Haiti. I do think that they're gonna have the crowds. They're gonna have the people behind them. But in the same vein, they don't really have the quality to pick up the results. Moving to Group D now. This is one that is harder than a lot of people are giving credit to, especially in the American media. USA, the hosts, they automatically assigned to Group D. Paraguay, Australia, and then the winner of UEFA Path C, which will be one of Turkey, Slovakia, Kosovo, or Romania. Australia is a good side. I mean, you look back at that 2022 World Cup, they were no chumps in that game. They fought hard. They went right to the end with Argentina. I'm trying to think of who else they beat. Oh, they beat Denmark to go through in the first place. This is not a team that you can really be overlooking if you're the United States of America. I think this is a group that favors the United States. I think this is a group that the United States should advance out of, but this is a group that you are not going to win it with ease. You're going to have to fight to win it.
Not at all. And here's the thing, I totally agree with that sort of feeling and sentiment that the American media has been underplaying this stage. Yes, the United States has had a great string of results recently, and they've been beating these calm the ball sides, and they've been having greater performances. But you can't underplay them. You can't underplay in Australia. You can't underplay Paraguay, just because if there's still talent. There's still talent in these teams, and they're gonna have to fight. They're gonna have to struggle. It might not be beautiful, but I mean, here's the thing: Pochettino has been doing a greater job in this sort of second half of international friendlies for this United States squad, and they've been piecing it together. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they make sort of a run if they get hot just at the right moment.
I agree. I mean, you should absolutely get by Paraguay. You should get by whoever wins that UEFA path, just because it isn't the hardest one. You avoided Italy, which because of that, you're gonna be more favorable in that matchup. If it's Turkey, it's probably gonna be difficult, especially after how the friendly went. But still, I struggle to see them causing too many problems for the United States. Paraguay, almost feel sorry for them in a way, because they haven't qualified for that many World Cups in their history. It's the first one since 2010, and they've got a very difficult time, I think, just because of the stature of their nation going up against these three. It's no means some of these other nations that are making their first World Cup in a while, but it is definitely not going to be easy from their perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, moving on to sort of another country that I feel bad for in Group E. Well, first of all, let me go and name them. Germany, Curacao, Ivory Coast, and Ecuador are the countries in this group.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Curacao. I really do. They showed a lot of heart. They showed a lot of fight. They made it happen by qualifying to the World Cup. But now you're faced with Germany and Ecuador, and I mean, still a gritty squad in the Ivory Coast. Reese, tell me, what do you think about this group?
I feel sorry for Curacao, I really do, because watching them qualify, it was great to see. They've done a great job recruiting dual nats from the Netherlands. Joa'o Margarito, one of them, Phoenix Rising legend. But again, you get drawn into that group where you have to go against the Ivory Coast, who's got Amad Diallo, Wilfred Zaha. I know he's old, but he's still there. And some more very quality players. Nicolas Pepe, I hope to see him at the World Cup. Arsenal legend. Ecuador, who we saw what they did in 2022. Was it enough to get through? No, but they still have Moise Caicedo in midfield. They got Piero Hincapié and on the back line. Two guys that are in the Premier League, and not just in the Premier League, but playing for two of the top teams in the Premier League. And again, not just playing for them, playing really well, especially Moise Caicedo. And then notice the one team I haven't spoke about yet is Germany. Germany, who have won the World Cup 4 times, are there, and they're going to be favorites again. They've got the quality. I think a lot of their youth that they have not begun to depend on, but have begun to turn to, because of the Thomas Muller and Toni Kroos, that generation has faded away, faded out of the limelight. You're now turning to a generation where it's Leroy Sané, Serge Gnabry, Joshua Kimmich. They're the older guys, but then the younger guys, Nick Voltemada is in there. If Florian Wirtz can find form, he'll be in there. It's a team that has so much quality. Jamal Musiala, if he gets fit in time, will likely be in there. It is, again, such a deep team, such a quality team that I even with how sorry I feel for Curacao because they have to go up against the Ivory Coast, because they have to go up against Ecuador, I still think this is a group that Germany can win 9 points in.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. And I mean, you mentioned it earlier. This Germany squad, it's fully balanced. I mean,
yes,
from goalkeeper to the striker up top. I mean, you can find players, and even then the replacements, they're still quality players that can eke out a result against these countries, and if not, win in good fashion. I think there's sort of no conversation. I think it's more second and third. Who do you have, Ecuador or Ivory Coast? Once again, these squads are very similar. They have great players in many positions. It's all really gonna go down to sort of who wants it more, I think, because they're very similar. They're very, very, very similar. I think Ecuador might just oust them out with quality just because of their domestic leagues and stuff like that, which really do help reinforce that team. But still, it's going to be a very close group from second and fourth.
I agree. I think, though, with Ivory Coast, though, is it's kind of two contrasting styles, not so much styles rather, but contrasting ways of. It is styles really. Yeah, Ecuador has this style where they're not going to concede a lot of goals. I mean, I'm looking at their results this season. They conceded one to Venezuela, one to the U.S., one to Mexico. The rest of their games, they've kept clean sheets. Now, also, in the large majority of those games, they're not scoring goals either. They've had 5-0 draws this calendar year. But they're a team that is going to lock you down defensively. They're not going to concede many goals. You look at the Ivory Coast, a lot of their talent, a lot of their quality is in the final third, is moving forward. I mean, I mentioned Wilfried Zaha. I mentioned Hamad Diallo. Sebastian Haller's there. They've got so much quality going forward that I don't think it's exceptional. I don't think it's like these world-class players, but I think it's enough that it would give them the edge just because I think they've got they've got a back line that is enough to limit Ecuador, that Ecuador, who already doesn't score many goals, now you're going to struggle even more.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you have to remember Ecuador last year, they're really relying off of Valencia up top, and I mean, allowing him to just become the hero for that squad and finding all the goals. It's just, I totally agree with that. I don't think that's a bad take at all. I'm honestly, again, I think that's what's really going to happen and go into fruition.
Yeah, moving on to Group F now. This is the one that I am probably most excited to watch as a neutral. Netherlands, Japan, the winner of UEFA Path B, which will be one of Ukraine, Poland, Albania, or Sweden, and then Tunisia. The Netherlands and Japan already, those are two teams that it's not 11 individual players like you see with some of these other nations, like you see when Brazil struggles, when England struggles. It's 11 guys that come from their club and struggle to mold. Both of those nations are probably the two best in the world. Maybe Germany up there too. In terms of building a team, in terms of getting all 11, really all 23 players in the squad bought into the idea of going on in the World Cup and advancing. And then you throw in the UEFA Path B winner. If it's Ukraine, Poland, Albania, I don't think it'll cause too many problems. Sweden, even then, I don't think it'll cause too many problems. They have the quality in Victor Gyökeres and Alexander Isak, Anthony Elanga in there as well, but they've struggled. They haven't won in their last 6 games. I know they've got Graham Potter in there now, and his best success as a manager has come while managing a Swedish club, Östersund. The issue is, they don't really have that it factor. They don't really have, as I mentioned with the Netherlands and Japan, that team factor.
For sure. And I mean, here's the thing: this Dutch squad, it's always been composed of your star European players, and then plus Eredivisie players who still, they come together, they work as a team. I think that's once again the case, and this Netherlands squad, you can never joke around with them. I think that still they'll put up a fight. They'll go up and compete against whoever goes up to them. I mean, we saw last World Cup against Argentina, taking it to extra time and just sort of dragging out that game against the eventual World Cup champion. This Netherlands squad is no joke. And I mean, here's the thing. When you have your main striker as Wout Weghorst and you're still winning results, going forth, doing great things, I mean, it's pretty impressive. Because we've seen it with European squads who utilize Wout Weghorst as their striker, they struggle. So I mean, it's definitely an interesting point to look at there.
I think the main thing they've done is just they figured out how to use Cody Gakpo better than any team really has, and again, their midfield, their back line is just so talented that you're gonna struggle to break that down. You're gonna struggle to get past them, and then all of a sudden they're gonna get a goal or two. It is such a talented team that they're probably not a favorite for the world winning the whole thing, but they're certainly a favorite to get into the quarterfinal, to get into the semifinal, just because the quality, experience, the defense. Those are things you look for in a team that goes on to win the World Cup, or not win the World Cup, but succeed in the World Cup. Japan, though, I really have been a big fan of them for a while. I mean, I'm just going to pick out three midfielders here because, I mean, it's probably more than three that I could pick out here. Wataru Endo, Takumi Minamino, Ritsu Don, and then Daichi Kamada, Ayo Tanaka, rather. Those five guys are not just good for the Japanese national team. Like you're not just looking at them and being like, oh, okay, these are good Premier League guys, or good guys in Europe, in terms of Don. It is a talented squad, and I'm excited to see what they can do in the World Cup.
For sure, and I mean even up top as well. I mean you have three quality forwards in Takefusa Kubo, who is obviously at Real Sociedad. He's young, he's energetic, he's electric. He's been doing great things for a couple of years now in La Liga. And then you have Ritsu Doan, I mean, who's also been at Frankfurt, been sort of moving, and finally Shuto Machino, who is at Borussia Mönchengladbach. I mean, these three forwards can help Japan and propel them to really something that you never seen before. And honestly, this is one of the best Japan teams, in my opinion, that we've seen in a good while, because they finally not only had those sort of two or three players in Europe. You're finally starting to see a lot of this squad, and even though it's in lower leagues, I mean, you have a lot of these players who are competing at the highest level and who are really just poised to go forth, and you've seen the way they play. I mean, this team, the way they work together, the way they run for each other, the way they're sort of united, it's a very big thing, and this Japan squad is going to be definitely one of the most exciting teams to watch at the next World Cup.
Exactly. It's not just guys that are, they're in the top leagues, but they're in the mid-table sides. But if you have 23 guys that are in the mid-table sides in Europe, you've got a pretty good team, And to respect some of these teams, yeah, they're better than mid-table sides. But again, they've got so much talent there. I'm excited to see what they can do. I do feel bad for Tunisia. It's a very similar thing to the last time, or into 2018 when they were in the World Cup, when they were in a group with Panama, who got beat pretty bad, but also England and Belgium. It was not an easy group for them. I forget who was in their group in 2022. I'm actually going to France, Australia, Tunisia, Denmark. So not an easy group for them in any of their times in the World Cup. Definitely not the easiest of goes for them. And turning to Group G, this is a group where it's fascinating, but I feel like it's a race for second, even with how they played. The main team played in the last World Cup. You've got Belgium, you've got Egypt, Iran, and New Zealand. Belgium's the favorite to win this group. Again, I mentioned how they missed the knockout stage of 2022, and that's really because a large part of their golden generation was starting to be phased out. I mean, Romelu Lukaku was not great in that World Cup whatsoever, but he was being moved on from. But now they've got a lot of young talent. I mean, Jeremy Doku, I know Leandro Trossard's not old, but he's really hitting some of his best form of his career. Malik Fofana. I think that this is a team that is just, it's not as good as the team that finished third place in 2018, but it is a team that is going to cause trouble for some of these better teams in the World Cup. And especially for Egypt, Iran, and New Zealand, they just simply don't have the depth to compete. I mean, Egypt, they've got Mo Salah and Marmoush at City, but they don't really have much else. New Zealand's got Chris Wood. Iran's got Taremi. They just don't have the midfield, the defense, the goalkeepers to compete with a team like Belgium.
Yeah, I mean, you've sort of hit all these points, and it's just this Belgium squad is not necessarily the best, but I mean, you still have lots of young talents. I mean, even then, including strikers like Icona Luis Openda at Juventus, and even then, Lara at Atalanta. I mean, there's a lot of quality in this squad. I mean, it won't be a surprise if they go, not the distance, obviously, but passing the group stage and maybe a quarterfinals. I think this is where this Belgium squad ends up, and it's really looking at these three sides. You mentioned there's a lack of sort of depth. You have big names, and then after that, there's nothing. In that case, who do you put at sort of 2, 3, and 4? Who do you see going in these positions, Reese?
I think it depends on who's available. I mean, last time Egypt was in the World Cup 2018, Mo Salah got hurt in the Champions League final. Sergio Ramos assaulted him. And that was pretty much that for Egypt's World Cup hopes. I know he's older now. He's 8 years older. He's kind of fallen out of favor with the Liverpool squad. But you've obviously got Omar Marmoush there too. I think those two players will present enough quality to get past New Zealand. And I think if you can get past New Zealand, you can probably eke a draw out with Iran. And then from there, it's just how many goals can you score against New Zealand. Now, New Zealand's no scrubs, but it's a difficult situation to really pick the group just because there weren't that really outstanding players outside of the forwards. And your forwards aren't what's going to carry you to a World Cup final or just out of the group, really, too. It's your back line. It's your spine of your team, your center backs, your goalkeeper, who's your 6, really who's your 8 as well. You got a good there. You got good players there. You're going to do well. Neither of these three teams are outstanding, have really just incredible talents there. And that's why I'm worried to see who goes there. I mean, I honestly could see it in any different way, just because who really knows with these teams? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean that's totally agreeable, and just I I don't know. I just I fear for the quality of this World Cup. Sort of. I've said it. I mean, you start expanding, you start adding more teams, and sort of things like that. You start sort of losing that quality. I mean, we're starting to see it in different sports as well. That we watch and that we sort of talk about, but it's gonna be interesting to see sort of how this round of 32 plays out as well, with these teams that are sort of not favored to do something, or sort of not favored to go that far. What's gonna happen, and sort of how is the viewership of this World Cup and things like that gonna be affected by?
I don't know, think that the viewership will be affected, but I definitely do agree that the quality is getting diluted with this expansion. At the end of the day, it's money. That's really all you do anything for in this world nowadays. And with the amount of money that this World Cup is about to make from the TV deals, from the TV viewership, I don't want to say you can't blame them, but you really can't. Moving on now to Group H. This is the easiest group to pick a winner in. Spain is the likely winner. Cabo Verde, Saudi Arabia, and Uruguay. Spain's the World Cup favorite, coming off that Euro win. It's not unprecedented for Spain to come off a Euro win and then win a World Cup. They did it in 2008 and then won the World Cup in 2010. I think they're a team that is looking more and more unbeatable by the day. They've got, again, so much quality. Samu Amordian up top, Ferran Torres. I mean, those aren't even the best players, but they're guys that are going to be able to do a job. They're younger guys that are stepping up. Lamine Yamal is obviously there. Nico Williams is obviously there. I know they've kind of missed out of the last few qualifiers just because of fitness, but there's quality all across the pitch. Mikel Merino is having a superb season in the Premier League. So is Martin Zubimendi. You've got Fabian Ruiz, who just won the Champions League with PSG. The back line has quality all over. You've got two good goalkeepers in Unai Simon and David Raya. Dean Housen. It is a team where you can look at so many guys on this team, and they've got quality all across the pitch. Is it, a team that is going to likely win the World Cup? Absolutely. And the other three teams in this group, I do feel sympathy for, because Uruguay, as good as they are, they're no match for Spain. They just don't have the quality to find a goal against Spain, I honestly think. And And
I mean, not
Cap,
only that, I just think that this is a Uruguay. I think this is one of the most. I'm not gonna say worst, but I think that this Uruguayan squad, in comparison to other World Cups, I mean, they lack more quality. There's less players in Europe this year. I mean, you still have Jose Jimenez, sort of in the back line, which I mean, this might go ahead and be his last World Cup. He's 30. And then after that, really, you're relying on players who play in South America. You're relying on players who even play in Liga MX. I mean, you have a couple of players there, and it's very unfortunate because Uruguay at some point, they could compete with a squad like Spain. I think 2014, 2018, it would have been different just because there's more quality in this squad, and it's just even then it's you can't sleep on this national team, but it's just stuff is very different now than what it was a good while back for this Uruguayan national team.
I do think that Uruguay has one of the best parts or one of the best units you could have in a team to cause an upset, and that's our midfielder. They got Manuel Ugarte, Rodrigo Bentancur, Lucas Torreira, Federico Valverde. They've got so much quality in that midfield unit that you can honestly make up for the lack of quality going forward. I mean, without Edison Cavani, without Luis Suarez, it's a little bit of a slow unit. Facundo Torres, maybe their best guy going forward. Darwin Nunez, of course, too. But beyond him, it's not a unit that has a lot of quality nowadays. We'll have to see. But again, it's no 2018, with Cavani and Luis Suarez.
Not at all. And I mean, it's just I've seen these strikers and I've seen these forwards sort of play, and it's just looking at these names, it's very difficult to see them go up and make a stand, especially watching them. I mean, in their domestic leagues, they might be significant, but at sort of a world scale, it's a whole different ball game for this Uruguayan national team.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then Cabo Verde and Saudi Arabia. I know Saudi Arabia had the win against Argentina in 2022, but that was a fluke. Argentina ended up winning the whole thing. In Cabo Verde, you're just here to make up numbers and bring aura to the tournament. Ultimately, it's not going to be that special. Group I, moving on now. This is a fascinating group. I'm looking forward to watching it. France, World Cup favorite. Senegal, who can cause problems, has a very good squad. The winner of the Intercontinental path to, which would be Iraq, Bolivia, or Suriname. Three nations that politely are there to make up numbers. Not a very good three at all. Mainly because this World Cup isn't going to be played 20 million miles above sea level, and Bolivia won't be able to do anything. And then Suriname and Iraq, bless them. And then your final nation in there, no scrubs at all. It's their first World Cup in a long time. First World Cup since 1998. And then when you hear the quality of players they've got, you kind of go, wow. Norway. This is a group that France probably should win. They're obviously going to be the favorites to win the group. Excuse me. But it is not going to be easy.
No, not at all. And I mean, here's the thing. Even then, looking at the last World Cup and in 2018, France had their stumbles going out of the group stage. There were matches where they struggled and they had to fight a little more than what they thought they were. And I mean, just looking at this Norway squad, it's just absolutely phenomenal in sort of sectors and in the attack and in midfield. I think there's a lot of quality. And even then in the defense, there's players who have quality. They're playing for mid-table sides, or even then they're playing in the second division. This Norwegian squad can go ahead and fight for second. I think it's most definitely possible, but even then, Senegal has a lot of quality too. So in a head-to-head, it's definitely going to be difficult, but I think Norway has sort of that physicality to take it on and win a match against Senegal.
I completely agree. I mean, looking at Norway, they've obviously got Erling Haaland, who is one of the best goal scorers in the world. maybe even in the sporting history. Alexander Sorloth is his backup, and he's no scrub either. He's been scoring goals his entire time with Norway. In the midfield, you've got the guy who's serving the ball up on a plate to both of them, Martin Odegaard. Oscar Bob, it can play there as well. Sander Berge. There's a lot of guys that can do a job to get you out of this group. As for Senegal, a lot of their spine of their team is old. They've got Kalidou Koulibaly at the back. He's 34. He's playing in Saudi Arabia now with Al Hilal. They've got Idris Gana Getway, who's playing for Everton. He's 36 now. You've Sadio Mane, 33, obviously playing in Saudi as well. But then you've got guys like Nicholas Jackson, who, what is he? You know, what can he bring to the team? There is the youth there, and some of these other players who are in and around the squad. I'm intrigued to see what they can do, but I think ultimately, when you have a guy like Erling Haaland and you've got a defense that is good enough, got guys playing for Dortmund, Julian Ryerson, got guys in the Premier League, Christopher Ayer, you're going to be able to advance out of the group.
Most definitely. I think this is also going to be one of those closer matchups. But when you start sort of putting things in a head-to-head sense and start outweighing sort of offenses, defenses, high-caliber players, Norway does take the cake. But even then, it wouldn't be surprising to see Senegal squeak out a result against Norway. I mean, anything can happen, and it's again going to be very interesting to see how this match plays out.
It definitely will be. That is it for Group I. Moving on to Group J. They did some favors for the GOAT here. Argentina. They have Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. Algeria is interesting to an extent. I mean, the issue is, again, a lot of their guys are old. That doesn't mean that it's not quality. Riyad Mahrez is still there. Riyad Mahrez is somehow still hooping at his big age. Said Benrahma's there. Again, there is quality, but I don't think they're a good match to stop the GOAT in Argentina. Austria, I don't think they have enough. I think they have enough to finish second because they've got guys like David Alaba, Marcel Sabitzer, guys that have been there for a while and have experience, have 50-plus caps. I mean, a lot of their core has been the same over the years, and I think that's obviously going to help you. And as for Jordan, they're one of those teams that, due to the expansion, they're just here to make up numbers.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally agree with you in both of those senses, and I think Austria is very similar to Switzerland in that position that they're in. They're not the best European squad. They're not a bunch of scrubs either. I think that they're going to try to go in there, do their job. And I mean, here's the thing with Argentina. I think Argentina, starting from this year, maybe on, I think they're going to be on a decline. And let me tell you why. The way that things are working out in the Argentinian leagues, the way that things are working out sort of with their president, there's a lot of changes that are being done that are eventually going to end up harming their local leagues, which is where a lot of their success has come, especially in players that don't fill up those gaps from European teams. Pro Rel is going away, or at least was going away at some point. There's a lot of big changes being done, and the Argentinian sort of fan base doesn't like that. Now, with that being said, I think that there's still enough quality in this Argentinian squad, but I don't think it's enough for them to go all the way. May it be a hot take? Possibly. But honestly, here's the thing. Messi's getting older. He's not the same person he was, even in 2022, even in 2018, even in 2014. But still, one thing that has remained consistent with this Argentinian squad is that they're going to play for their captain. They showed it last time around. They all rally behind and they try to do it all for Leo, because Leo is everything for them. Not only for that Argentinian squad, but in Argentina. It doesn't matter what local club you support. I mean, you support Leo because he's everything. But I don't think it's gonna be enough. There's quality, yes, but there's more quality in many different other national teams.
I definitely get the sentiment you're sharing there because, it is an older team in some parts. You look at like guys like Rodrigo De Paul. He's come to Inter Miami. He's effectively going to retire, but he's still Messi's bodyguard. But again, on the other side of the coin, they've got younger guys that are going to be able to step up and fill the roles for him. Thiago Almada, Alexi McAllister on the older side of that, but Nico Paz as well in midfield. Julian Alvarez, Enzo Fernandez. Julian Alvarez is a striker, so is Giuliano Simeone. Two guys that are playing very well for Atletico. Franco Masantuono on the other side of Madrid. I think that this is a team that has enough quality. And they have the they have the passion, but also, as you said, they play for Messi. And I think at the end of the day, they recognize the other 22 guys in the squad recognize time after time again it's bigger than themselves, which is one of the most important things for international football. You look at Portugal with Ronaldo; they're kind of playing for Ronaldo in a way, but Ronaldo's playing for himself. And you saw that in the Euros this year, or last year, it really cost them. It cost him a big part where, he's taking these ridiculous free kicks where they should put someone else on it to whip it in. Instead, for some reason, he's going for goal because he thinks it's 2008 and he's at Old Trafford and it's the Champions League. That's just not the case anymore. And I think that, whether you believe that Messi or Ronaldo is the GOAT doesn't really matter. I think you can recognize that Argentina is a team that is better off with Messi, better off because they believe in it. They are a team, and I think at the end of the day, international football, it's a cliche, but it's the teams that come together most and the teams that can defend the most that will go on to win it. And I think that Argentina has the best chance of doing that.
And my issue with this Argentinian squad, at least this time around, is sort of the depth. Because you're starting 11, you have players of quality. You have players that are absolutely phenomenal. But after that, it's just you're relying on players that are more, well, first of all, older, which I think is going to be a very big hindrance. You're relying on players who are sort of younger in a sense, and that's just very difficult, especially if it's going to be the first cup, like Giuliano Simeone, like Nico Paz. Are they going to live up to those expectations? I think that's another really big thing with this Argentinian side. It's again, there's quality. They play together. I think they're going to do great things, but I don't see them hoisting the World Cup or at least next year.
Yeah, I think that's a fair argument to make. Moving on to who many other people consider to be the GOAT and his group. Group K, Portugal, the Intercontinental Path 1 winner. Uzbekistan, Colombia, the Intercontinental Path 1 winner will be one of the Democratic Republic of Congo, or Congo DR Congo, Jamaica, or New Caledonia. I think Jamaica has the best chance of getting out of that, especially on a neutral site. But if they do, I think they have a good chance of getting through, even with all the problems they've had over the years, just because Uzbekistan, they are politely there to make up numbers. Colombia, I do think they are a very good team, which will be interesting to see how those two teams match up. But they're older, which means, they've got experience, but on the other side, they're not as quick as they used to be. I mean, James Rodriguez, bless him, somehow he just got called up to play New Zealand and Australia in November. He's only 34, which is shocking. I would have thought he was 36, but also I guess that does make sense because he was so young in 2014. But then looking at Portugal, it's hard not to argue with this squad because, I mean, you've obviously got Cristiano Ronaldo, who, debate him all you want. Beside him, you've got Gonzalo Ramos, Rafael Leao, Mateus Nunes, Ruben Neves, the midfield, Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva. The midfield is so good in this team that the back line only has to be good enough, and the back line produces a lot of fullbacks. Portugal's always done a good job producing fullbacks. I mean, they've got Nuno Mendes, Nelson Semedo, Diego Dalot, and Joao Cancelo, four guys that can play fullback. Now, I know Cancelo is much more versatile than that. It's a little disrespectful to include him in that, but still, it is a very, very interesting squad. And I think just because of how good the midfield is, they're going to be able to do things in this World Cup, and they're going to be able to go far, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, you cover many great points, and it's just, I think Ronaldo needs to recognize the team aspect. I think that
Yes.
he needs to recognize it is more than myself. Because here's the thing, I fear with a lot of these great players, especially in the midfield, like João Neves, like Palhinha, like Vitinha. I fear I don't want the World Cup to be wasted. I'm just gonna put it plain and simple, because let's look at Belgium as well. I mean, Belgium had their golden generation. They could have done something with it. A lot of people had them riding high on expectations. They were ranked at some point in the World Cup rankings at two.
They were
Two,
one.
one.
They were one
They
after
were one,
2018.
exactly. And I'm not saying that this Portugal squad is like that in every facet of play, but they definitely have the talent and the quality to go sort of far. But if you can't produce up top, and if you're wasting opportunities on set pieces, on corners, on things of that sort, it's very difficult to see you winning games, especially against high caliber countries.
Yeah, I completely agree there. I'm fascinated to see what this kind of turns out to be, what this Portugal team turns out to be, whether or not Ronaldo takes a back seat or not, because I think he needs to. I think he needed to in the Euros, and does he have it in him to do that? I don't think he does, and you're not going to drop him. It's not like 2014 the U.S. dropped Landon Donovan. Landon Donovan is not a tenth as good as Cristiano Ronaldo. You can afford to drop him because as much of a legend he is to the U.S., he's still only good. He's good. He's a U.S. great, but he's still only good. Cristiano Ronaldo is Cristiano Ronaldo. You cannot drop him. I can't even imagine Portugal without Ronaldo. I think when Ronaldo retires, he'll still show up for Portugal duty.
That's for sure. And I mean, even then, looking at Portugal before Ronaldo, there was a lot of sort of mediocrity.
Yes,
there wasn't a defining factor that made Portugal stand out, and they were I want to say middle of the pecking order. Yes, they were high quality players, but it's just you struggle. And I mean, sort of going on and looking at this Colombia squad, I think that 1 and 2 spot, it could be interchangeable to some extent. I mean, you look at Colombia and they're not the best squad, but here's the thing. This squad showed it in the Copa America. They are a gritty squad. They are a squad that's going to fight. The names on the paper, I mean, the most notable ones right now are Davison Sanchez, Luis Diaz, James Rodriguez, and Daniel Munoz at Crystal Palace. But I mean, after that, it's you sort of struggle. But here's the thing: this team also has this unity, like Argentina, which can drive them to proportions that on paper they shouldn't be reaching. And it's sort of more. I mean, the goalkeeping already concerns me. You have Kevin Mier, goalkeeper for Cruz Azul, who he's committed a lot of mistakes with his squad in Liga MX. That defense, it's old. It is old. You have a 29-year-old Davison Sanchez leading you, and after that, it's you have your fullbacks at Joan Mojica at 33. You have Felipe Roman at 30. It's very difficult to see this Colombia if they end up getting injured or if they end up sort of facing those difficulties. What is the depth gonna look like? And how is that depth going to affect them going on outside of the group stage? Because in the group stage, again, they're either 1 or they're 2. And it's interchangeable. And I think that Portugal-Colombia match, it's going to be electric. There's going to be fireworks. But at the end of the day, it's all going to go down to sort
in
of
Miami, too. In Miami
as well,
that is
yes.
going to be unreal. I think this is a group, going back before we wrap up Group K talk, I think if Jamaica gets out of it, because of where Portugal is, because of Colombia being a bit older, I could see them advancing, not in the top two, but as a third place, just because you steal a point off one of the two, and then you batter Uzbekistan, you could get through. Now, Uzbekistan, they could possibly do the same thing. Now, will they? Probably not. Moving to Group L. England, Croatia, Ghana, Panama. I think that this is a group that looks much harder on paper than it is in reality for England. Panama, England's played before in the World Cup. They beat them 6-1 in 2018. And I do think Panama has more so regressed since then. Croatia, they're not the same Croatia they were in 2018. I do think they are still good. Luka Modric, at 40 years old, is somehow, some way, still getting up in the morning and putting on the boots, getting out there and playing. Ghana, I think they've got quality, but I don't know if they have enough. They've obviously got Mohamed Kudus. They've got Antoine Semenyo, two guys that are playing in the Premier League and playing really well as well. Iñaki Williams. They've got Thomas Partey as well in midfield. There are players in there that could cause trouble, but I think with the quality of England, with the expectation surrounding England for this tournament, England should win this group and should win this group with ease. More maybe not so with ease in terms of individual matches, but ease in terms of, you look in the standings and it was like, oh, yeah, no one was really close. They should end up with 9 points.
And then England-Croatia matches played at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. I think that's going to be one of the most full games this World Cup. I can honestly see it. But Rees, you've done the change. You now have Thomas Tuchel as your head coach. England with a squad, full of quality. What are the keys for this English squad to go far in the World Cup? What do you need to see, and what do you want to see from this side of the U column?
I think the main thing I need to see from England is more creativity in the final third. You look at the Euros, from when England made that run in last time out, it wasn't pretty. England did not go out and score a lot of goals, and really that was a lot or a main theme of Gareth Southgate's tenure with England, was that England they were good enough, they could score goals, they could batter teams, but they weren't ultimately going to batter teams hard enough, well enough that you could win things. And that's why they lost 2 Euro finals. They sat back and defended too much, and as good of backlines as England's got, I think you need to be more willing to attack with this team. Again, we're going to go over the talent that they've got in this team. You have so much talent. You've got Bukayo Saka, Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, very likely your starting front three. Phil Foden, Eberechi Eze, Declan Rice in midfield, Jude Bellingham in midfield, Morgan Rogers, Adam Wharton. There is so much talent. Cole Palmer, he wasn't called up this window, but he's been there. He scored the goal in the final in the Euros. But the issue was they did not look coherent in the final third. They struggled in the group stage. They struggled really in the knockouts. It was a Cinderella run for a team that should not be a Cinderella, for a team that should be a favorite, for a team that should be in the semifinals of every tournament they play, based off the sheer fact of the quality they have, is not matchable for most nations.
Now, you've sort of talked about what this squad needs, what you want to see from the squad. Where do you see this English squad sort of finishing at the World Cup? Do you see them going far? Do you see them possibly, fighting for a first World Cup trophy since 1966, if I'm not wrong?
Yes, you are not wrong. I think that is probably the case. I think that, honestly, anything less than a World Cup trophy will probably be viewed as a failure, just because you spent a lot of money to bring in Thomas Tuchel. You've got the squad, and I don't want to say that England's the surefire candidate to win it, but I think if we're talking about, just a little bit of a failure, below. I think you've got to get to the semifinals just because, again, you've got so much quality. I don't know what the path to this semifinal final would be. It's way too early to even think about that. But this is one where you have to go far. You cannot waste this generation. I know England is younger and somehow they're only getting younger. But 2018, you lose in the semifinals of the World Cup. 2022, bounced out in the quarterfinals to France, albeit a very good France team. Quarterfinal is not the goal there. After in 2021, you lose in the Euro final. 2024, lose in the Euro final. It's time to change the fate of this team. And the only way to do that is by somehow, some way, winning it. But again, we'll have to wait and see. That does kind of spoil our next segment. But before we do, we'll talk about the format. Obviously, 48 teams, 12 groups of 4. The 2 best teams in every single group go through, and then the 8 best third-place teams go through. And there are 495 possible combinations of where the third-place teams will play in the round of 32. I'm not even going to bother to scroll through this. It is on the Wikipedia page if you ever feel like just looking at it. All 495 combinations. So, Joa'o, I know you'll spend a lot of time there, but then it's round of 32, round of 16, quarterfinals, semifinal, and final. Talk about our favorites, dark horse, and one thing we want to see. We'll start with the one thing we want to see in this World Cup. Joa'o, we'll start with you. What is one thing that you want to see?
Well, I mean, if we're going based off of what I want to see, I mean, I want to see a composed Mexico group. I want to see a composed Mexico team. I want to see them finally break that 5th game curse so we can stop complaining about it every 4 years because it's starting to become annoying. But I mean, I just want to see them do well. I mean, that's sort of me being personally biased, but honestly, I just want to see electric games. I just want to see sort of everyone come together as well, because I think that's what makes the game beautiful. And I think sort of having these mixtures of cultures all around these 3 countries, I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. And that's sort of what I want to see. I want to see unity. I don't want to see people duking it out before a match or something.
That reminds me a lot of the Copa 90 segment I pitched and got rejected for. Shout out them. I think one thing I want to see is tie it back to England and the United States. I want to see the United States kind of do the same thing. I want to see them play well. I want to see them kind of deliver on a lot of the promises that this World Cup was hyped up to be. This was really hyped up for since the U.S. got announced as host, that this was going to be the World Cup where they were going to be contenders. Now, that's not going to be the case, obviously. That's way too overzealous in their prediction. But this is a World Cup that the United States needs to show up in. And when they play against some of these good sides, go toe-to-toe with. Don't be afraid. You're on your home soil for every game you'll play, and deliver. Now, for England, I want to see them win it. That's the main thing. Nothing else. Win it, or I couldn't care less. Now, dark horse. Who is your dark horse team? They don't have to be a team from the outside that you think will win the World Cup, but a team that could easily cause an upset or 2 or 3 and maybe get to the semifinals like a Morocco or Croatia did in 2022, or even just get to the quarterfinals but upset a few teams along the way.
Look, my dark horse, we talked about it already. I think Japan. I think Japan is definitely a country that can go to toe-to-toe with really anyone. They'll go ahead and fight. They'll go ahead and do things the correct way to try to go ahead and go through. We saw them have great games against Belgium in recent World Cups. We've seen them compete with these European sides. And I think that this year could finally be the year. They're not going to win it. I in the bottom of my heart, it hurts to say that they're not going to win it, but I think they can go far. I think they can go to a quarters, possibly a semis, just because of the unity and the quality that they have in many different sectors.
I'm going to give you 2 dark horses. The first one, Norway. That's a little bit of an odd pick. I know they're way better than in terms of the individual quality. But again, as I spoke about earlier, they've got the spine that you want. They've got the good defenders, and they've obviously got the talent in midfield with Martin Odegaard, and they've got the best striker in the world in Erling Haaland. That is a spine of a team that is going to help you beat some of these better teams, beat, maybe potentially upset a Spain and Argentina or whatnot, that can cause trouble. That's why I have them as my first dark horse. My second dark horse, kind of hurts me to say this. My second dark horse is Scotland, right? Scotland has never advanced out of the group stage in any of the international tournaments they have qualified for. Excuse me, they've qualified for 10 international tournaments. They have never made it out of the group stage. But this team has so much quality. I mean, on the back line, you've still got an old Andy Robertson, Kieran Tierney as well, Scott McTominay in midfield, John McGinn on the wing. You've got Che Adams up top. You've got, if he can get healthy, Billy Gilmore, who's playing well for Napoli. It is a team that they are going to be able to cause problems, but they could also very realistically be bounced out in the group stage because they don't have the easiest of groups in the World Cup by any stretch of the imagination, just because you've got to play Brazil, you've got to play Morocco. But if you can get past one of those, they could cause some trouble. Now, to cause some trouble some more with some controversial picks, maybe, let's give two teams that we could see winning the World Cup. Doesn't really have to be a final matchup because they could be on opposite sides of the bracket or they could be on the same side. But just two teams that you could see winning the World Cup, Joa'o.
Well, look, I don't want to be obvious, and I'm going to draw away from Spain. I think Spain is obviously a definite World Cup candidate, but I can also see Germany and Brazil going for a World Cup win this time around. I mean, Germany, we already talked about the incredible, insane amount of talent that they have all around this team. And I mean, if they piece something together, they can beat any squad on any given day. And even then, I don't want to be obvious. I don't want to go with a France as well because, look, they're favorites. Spain and France, they're two definite teams. But even then, I think a Brazil team, again, you've mentioned it, they have a lot of quality. They've been working out their tweaks. They've been on the rise. They get hot at the right moment. And if Vinny can work with Richarlison, if he can work with an Esteval, if he can work with a Rodrigo, I think that this Brazilian national team can go the distance, compete, and even then once again beat any team on a given day.
Yeah, I'm not going to go with those two, even though they're definitely probably in my top 5 teams that could win the World Cup. I'm going to go with Spain just because it's the obvious one. And with the quality that they have, the form that they've been in, it would be almost disrespectful to not include them in either of our picks, the combined 4 teams that we'll pick, just because, again, they've been so good. They were so dominant in the Euros. My second team, it's a little bit difficult because I'm not going to go Brazil, Germany, and copy you. And then there's a short list that I have. And the short list is France, England, Portugal, Netherlands, because I do think Argentina, it's so hard to repeat in the World Cup. I've kind of ruled them out. Netherlands, I don't think they've got that level of quality. Portugal, I think, does, as does France, but I think it's got to be England's. It's got to be 60 years after they last won one. I think you almost have to keep predicting England's going to win the World Cup until you're right at this point, just because we're 60 years on from the last time we've won one. And the fact that they haven't won one since is a little bit disgraceful. England is one of my picks.
I mean, that's not a bad pick at all. Again, they have the quality. They have the players. They finally have the manager. Finally,
Yes.
I mean, you get rid of Gareth Southgate. I know we've had those conversations and sort of what went wrong in those big particular moments. But I guess my final question for you in relation to England is, will the lights be too bright for them? Will the pressure cause them to succumb to failure like always? Or do you think that they can finally just make that push? Because even then, you're also dealing with it's a squad that has leadership. It's a squad that sort of has this young talent, but they haven't been able to break the ice can they finally do it in relation to that and more the mental aspects of it all?
I see. I think that's the main reason of why England won't win the World Cup. I mean, since 1966, they've only made it to 5 semifinals in either the World Cup or the Euros because the pressure gets to them. They kind of get in their own head and think they're too much. And this is a team that I do think it is different. I do think that Gareth Southgate laid a foundation that they believe. I mean, I don't think you go to the final of the Euros in 2024 without believing, because that was a team who they should have been there, yes, but they didn't look like it. They didn't play well enough at any point in the group stage. They didn't look good. In the round of 16 against Switzerland, they didn't look good in that game. Slovakia or Serbia, I can't remember. Then the quarterfinals against Switzerland, you didn't look good. Semifinal against Netherlands, they actually played well in that. But this is one where I think anything, and I'll continue to say it, anything but a win is almost a failure. I don't really want to say that as an England fan, but I believe it. I do believe that anything but a win is a failure.
That's totally agreeable. That's totally respectable, and I think that goes for many countries this year. And even then, this might be on the higher end of things, I guess. In footballing superpowers, it's going to be very exciting because there's a lot of firepower. There's a lot of sort of just insane teams that are going into this World Cup. And you look at them and you're like, damn, we have the Avengers facing off against the Justice League. I don't know.
Yeah, it is definitely going to be a good World Cup. That is for certain. Here's to saying we can cope with the 3-minute timeout in every single half that we all know Fox and broadcasters around the world are just using it as a commercial break because for some reason the United States cannot cope without a commercial break. But with that being said, that will do it for this episode of The Inverted Microphone, a World Cup episode. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow on all platforms. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, what else? YouTube, The Inverted Microphone.
Anywhere you get your podcast.
Anywhere you get your podcast. Joa'o, I'm going to send you the audio and you are going to upload the audio. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
That is correct. I'll upload the video. Don't you worry about that. But with that being said, Joa'o, where can they follow you on the Twitterverse?
At Joa'o Reports on Twitter.
You can follow me at Rees Goodall on Twitter. Again, it is a beautiful game, but it is way more beautiful when the World Cup draw show doesn't last 72 hours like it did this year. Have a good one.